Hello, everyone. Welcome. Bill Dow here, and I am here today with Andy Jordan.
Hello, everybody. I am Andy Jordan, and believe it or not, I know this will come as a shock. I'm here with Bill Dow.
Let's jump into this, Andy. Thank you so much, and for having this conversation. I know I get asked a lot is, how do you become a PMO consultant, right? And you are a PMO consultant, and so what I wanted to do, though, I think it's a great way of starting this is, let's talk about your background. So give us a little bit about your background, your experiences.
Well, it's all a sad, tragic mistake, Bill. I was destined to be a banker. I was a banker in a high street bank in England, as they call them, sort of Main Street bank, for 4 years, and then realised that was a mug's game. So I went to London and started working for a very exclusive private bank, the kind of place where they go, certainly I'll lend you £1 million, sir. How much interest would you like to pay? One of those places.
Yeah.
And they decided that, having had 4 years of high street banking, they were going to put me through the ringer and get me to forget all of that and teach me how to do real banking. And I happened to be in the investment area of the business at a time when something called CREST was happening, which was basically electronic stock settlement in the UK. They were going from paper to electronic records, big project. You had to connect into the systems and everything else. And the person running the project got fired. And I guess I was the slowest runner. So they said, you can do it. So I became a project manager by default. And that went fairly well. And I thought, hey, I'm kind of enjoying this. And then we decided to immigrate to Canada. And at the time, you got lots and lots of points to score against the threshold you had to reach, depending on the type of job you had. And you got maximum points if you were a chef, and I'm no chef, or a business systems analyst. And I'm like, well, close enough. So, okay, I'm a business systems analyst. I get to Canada, and then there's sort of jobs for analysts and project managers are all over the place. I'm like, okay, well, I'm a project manager. I've done that sort of stuff. Let's apply for that. And I got a PM job, and I thought, this is really good. And they taught me how to be a project manager and said, hey, this is something to remember here, that every project is unique, and here's the standard way that you manage every unique project. And I'm starting to think, okay, this doesn't make a lot of sense, but all right, I'll just be a good boy. And then I had a chance after a few years to set up a PMO. And that became even more frustrating, working with the first head of the PMO in that organization, where they said, every project's unique, and now we're going to have a central function to ensure that they're all managed in exactly the same way. And if you don't do it properly, we're going to have reports and compliance audits and all this kind of stuff, because we're the PMO. And I'm sitting there thinking, there's got to be a better way. And from there, it sort of went from, okay, I'm now old enough and confident enough that I'm not just going to sit here and think there's got to be a better way. I'm going to start saying there's got to be a better way, and started to speak up and said, look, PMOs have to be business functions. They have to be, able to make a difference and add value to the organization. And that sort of got a bit of traction and got me a job with a consulting firm. And I started doing reasonably well there, and then ended up thinking, I'm making a lot of money for this consulting firm. Why don't I start doing it myself? So long story, from high street bank to PMO consultant, but I decided, okay, I'm standing for something now. I'm saying how PMO should be. It's good enough to get me contracts for this client. Let me see if it's good enough to get me contracts on my own. So I went out on my own a little bit more than 15 years ago now, and never looked back. So
wow, that's a really interesting story. It's a great story, and I just want to pick and just ask a couple things, because you started building PMOs relatively early. You said you were a project manager, and then pretty quickly into it that you started building PMOs. That's pretty unique, actually.
Hey,
that doesn't happen much.
No, it was just after Y2K, so it was
okay.
Spring of 2000.
Yeah.
And the company that I was working for was a financial software company, and they were, okay, we've got through this Y2K thing, but it was a bit of a mess, and we spent a lot of money doing stuff that didn't really work very well. So let's see if we can structure things a bit more formally, and looked at the PMO, and I had the opportunity to do that. So
yeah,
that's what I did.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really great story because that just doesn't happen, right? You get people that are in project management for a long time. They maybe make that program management, portfolio management, and then PMO management. And so doing that relatively early, there was not a lot of books, there was not a lot of YouTube, there was not a lot of people out there. So you kind of stumbled and built it and grew as right as you were kind of learning how to do that, which is a great experience, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that, there was no one to tell me beyond the training course and my line manager the way it should be done. And
Yeah,
it's easy to argue with two people, right?
yeah,
If there'd
right,
been, YouTube and, all the rest of it saying this is the way you have to do it, then I might have been a bit more wary. But,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'm not exactly backward in coming forward. So,
Yeah, and your 15 years as a PMO consultant has is and let's level set for everyone. When you mean consultant, you're not just talking about a PMO project manager that we hire and you come in and you manage projects as a PMO consultant. You're talking about consulting the building, the running, the portfolio management, the governance of a PMO,
yeah,
right?
I don't run PMOs because that's too much like hard work. I just tell people how to run PMOs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my work, and it's broadened beyond PMOs now,
Yeah.
but my work is largely with organizational leadership in
Yeah.
helping them to put meaningful PMOs in place. Some of them have got the governance, audit, reporting type function, and it's not working. Some
Yeah.
of them have been there, done that, thrown it away, and trying to figure out a better way. So now it's getting more into strategic and in
Yeah.
EPMO type models and portfolio management and organizational transition and stuff like that. But it's putting the PMO in the center of value delivery.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a key point, right? Because the PMO consultant term itself could be confused in so many different ways, right? And so our conversation today, we really want to base it on an individual like yourself that can come in and advise executive leaders, advise PMO managers, right? Have you seen as a PMO consultant, have you seen many consultants run the PMO, or do you tend to leave that to the employees?
I've seen certainly some people who label themselves as PMO consultants happily run a PMO for a couple of years.
Okay.
And to me, that's a contracts PMO lead. That's not a PMO
Yeah.
consultant.
Right.
I have run PMOs for fairly brief periods.
Yeah.
I've also had contract roles in other executive functions. I've been a CIO for a couple of years at one particular place because that was a need that they had while doing some PMO consulting alongside that role. But I view my role as making myself redundant.
Yeah.
It's if I'm doing the job properly, then and it may take a few months, but it shouldn't take more than a year.
Yeah.
But I'm developing an individual from the organization
Yeah.
who can run the PMO and build it from the framework and the foundation that we're putting in place to optimize the value and evolve with the organization the way it needs to be. If I'm just running the PMO, the organization is not actually learning from me and I'm not doing my job properly.
Yeah, that's so important. That's so key. And again, as we get into some of the conversations, I think that's a real key root point of what we want to talk about today. Because the other really question or the follow up is: are you hired by a PMO manager, director, leader themselves, or are you more hired by an executive team?
Yeah, it's almost exclusively executives now.
Yeah.
If it's a PMO leader, it's because my boss told me to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, a lot of the time the PMO leader doesn't want me there because I'm not there if the organization is happy with what the PMO is doing.
Right.
The fact that I've come in suggests there's an opportunity. Let's be positive.
Yeah, and a threat, and essentially, if they're not secure in their role, it could be a threat, right? It could definitely be a threat to saying, "Hey, you're highlighting." However, if you do work with someone that are more secure in their role, they'd embrace you coming in because you bring in experience and background and things that they may not have.
And that certainly happens. But I mean, I think a lot of it is they hear I'm coming, they Google me, they realize, it's a bit of an oh snap moment, to be more polite.
Yeah. They Google me. So you can be Googled, Andy Jordan?
Well, I could be Googled. I mean, I wouldn't. There's an Andy Jordan who runs a bicycle warehouse, and there's an Andy Jordan who was a reality TV star in the UK. So, you know, they might find the PMO one, or they might think they're going to get some handsome reality TV star show up. I'm not sure, or somebody riding a bike. But then, you know, there you go. Anyway, look. We've spent way too much time talking about
no.
What about
Andy,
your background?
Good.
Come on.
Yeah, it's
Come
been
on.
good. It's been good.
I mean,
yeah.
tell
So
us about you.
I'll get into my background. So you can Google me as well, and what you get is a very famous actor named Bill Dow, who has been on Star Trek and all these various things, right? So that comes up a lot. So. But my background, so I started like you. I started as a project manager. And I started as a business analyst, actually, and then moved quickly into project management. And I was about 11 or 12 years project managing before I got my first PMO. So I've been a PMO manager for the last 20 years, 10 PMOs across 4 different companies. So I've been around PMOs for a long time, but I'm rooted in project management. And so that's really, but I've also done program management. I've done portfolio management. I've been PMO director, PMO manager, PMO lead. I've had the variety of roles, but I've not made that move yet to consultant. I've not done that yet. Eventually I will obviously get there. And so this conversation is really going to be, there's so many people that want to jump into this PMO consultant role. And so I haven't made that move yet, but lots of experience in PMOs.
Don't make the move. I don't need the competition.
That's funny. I think there's a lot of PMOs out there around the world that could need some help, or that needs help. So
yeah, you could be right.
Let me jump into the skills. So one of the things that I get asked for a lot, and I'm just dying to find out your background, are what are some of the key skills and qualities that are important as a PMO consultant?
You know, it's not project management. It's not. I mean, when I talk to organizations and they talk about what they're doing now with the PMOs, and this isn't a slam on PMs at all. You know, that was where I started, but I say to PMOs, if you give me a business leader and a month, I can turn them into a PMO leader. If you give me a project manager and a year, I might be able to turn them into a PMO leader. The skills you need are business focused.
Yep.
You know, a PMO isn't about helping project managers. It's about helping the organization. It's about creating an environment, so there's a business focus before we even start, where discretionary investments, projects, products, epics, whatever you want to call them,
yep,
can be delivered in a way that maximizes the chances of them achieving business value. Because that's why every project is done. No one cares about on time, on scope, and on budget if it's not also on benefit. Right. So understanding that is critical, the business acumen base. But more important than that is the ability to build relationships. You can be an introverted PMO consultant. No problem with that at all. I'm clearly not. But you have to be able to develop strong working relationships. You have to be able to lead, for want of a better term, influence people, get them to listen to you. You have to be comfortable at all levels of the organization. You know, I talk to project managers and project team members on a regular basis. I talk to the C-suite on a regular basis, and you have to be comfortable with both, because otherwise, you know, it's not going to work. You have to be current all the time. You know, this is a world that's moving rapidly.
Yeah.
If people are still talking about project portfolio management, they're behind the times, because everyone else is talking about strategic portfolio management now. You have to understand business capabilities and value stream management. You have to have an opinion, nobody knows, but you have to have an opinion on where AI is going to be a disruptor for PMOs and strategy execution. But that's critical. You also have to know what you're not. You know, I am not somebody who has any experience in construction. So don't ask me to set up your construction PMO, right? Because I can't do it. Right. If you want a strategic PMO for a construction firm that handles all the strategic initiatives that go beyond the building stuff, all right, we'll have that conversation. But you've got to know what you're not. You've got to be prepared to turn down the work that doesn't align. Because if you're a consultant, you are your reputation.
Yeah.
And if your reputation is not great because you took on the wrong job, then it's going to hurt you down the road.
Yeah, I think that's such a key point, right? Is you got to know where your strengths are, where you can't provide value, right? Because like you said, how could we possibly, being in IT, go to a construction? We have no idea how they run pipes and run, pour concrete and stuff. It would be fascinating, but you got to stay within your lane, right? And your lane could be broad, but that is a particular one that you just like, hey, sorry, there's smarter people out there that can do that stuff.
Well, and it's interesting what you say, that it'd be fascinating. Yes, I'd learn a lot. It would be great for my career. But I haven't yet met a single client who said, I'm more than happy to pay your daily rate. And you can spend the first year learning.
Right.
If I want to come in on my own dime and spend a year learning, they might be interested.
Yeah.
They don't pay consultants to learn. They pay consultants to hit the ground running, hour one, day one.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. And you also, what you brought up, and you've brought up for years, and a lot of folks who are kind of leading this in this PMO world, is really do think about this being a business function. Do think about it's not about the programs and projects. It is a little around the execution. I mean, I'm doing it daily, so it is a little, but you have to think about it from a business function perspective, right? And if you don't do that, it's no different than finance or HR, right? All those other business functions, your PMO's got to have that same seat at that table.
You're enabling performance within project execution, but you're enabling that performance for the business. Just like sales are focused on selling stuff, professional services are focused on helping clients to do stuff. Operations are focused on processing stuff. And the PMO is focused on ensuring that the project stuff gets done as effectively and efficiently as possible.
Yeah, and your example of a month with a business leader and a year with a project manager, that's frankly because project managers have a hard time looking wide. They go deep, and you're going to need that length of time to go look wide. You're running an organization. It's about relationships. It's about people. It's about, it's about that wide concept, not deep, not about every risk and issue and action that you have on your project. And that is a big transformation for a lot of people. And sometimes they can't do it, or it takes much longer.
It's getting better for PMs, but there's certainly some resistance still from those PMs who've been around for a while. But at the end of the day, no one is going to congratulate a project manager for delivering a product on time, on scope, and on budget if it doesn't sell.
Right.
On the other hand, if you understand enough about the work that you're doing and the business context of that work to say, if we deliver this as we're supposed to, it's not going to sell.
Right.
So let's talk with the stakeholders. Let's see how we can change it. Let's see how we can adjust it. It may cost us more. We may have to change the scope a few times. We may be later than planned. But if we end up with a widget that people buy, the business isn't going to care that it cost a bit more and took a bit longer, because they're still going to hit their business goals.
Yeah. And that is a key point of being a seat at the table project manager or an admin checkbox project manager, right? So if you're an admin checkbox, do you have your risks, do you have your issues, do you have your schedules? Yes, they're important, but a seat at the table project manager, and the one that's actually in the conversation, that the developers and the people would want in the conversation, is actually involved in that. Look, can I give you my opinion? Can I do, what do you think about this, right? Compared to, do you have your risks, do you have your issue? You gotta move the schedule along. That's a huge difference in how project managers can make that leap into the next level of their career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's what matters, right? And I mean, that's where I see my role as a consultant in helping the organization to understand that, right? I mean, you work with consultants. I'm sure you hire consultants on a regular basis, Bill. I mean, what do you look for? I mean, what do you need the help with sometimes?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I don't hire a lot. I haven't hired a lot of consultants over my career from coming in and building the PMO. But when it's very specific. It's very specific. Hey, we're really struggling with governance. we're really struggling with portfolio management. We're struggling resource management. We're struggling with this big business problem that we're having in the PMO that's impacting the business. And there is a lot of smart people like yourself. There's a lot of smart people out there to hire to bring in and say, can you help us with the governance structure? Over the course of a couple big companies I've worked for, we've brought in teams to help build out governance structures, to help build out portfolio management. Because sometimes it just takes consultants with different opinions and different views and working across different companies to come in and help the executive team really, hey, you know what? This is what these other companies are doing. This is what I recommend. And so we've done that. And so, it's a really key is being very specific in what you're looking for and then bringing the consultants in for that. And it's been very successful.
Yeah. I mean, consultant can only do what they're asked to do, right?
Yeah, 100%. So what are some of the challenges? That you as a consultant face?
How many days do we have for this? There's a lot of challenges. It's easy. Every consultant is going to tell you that the challenges are the client. Right? I mean, the demanding client, the client who expects you to be available 24/7, the client who doesn't respect the boundaries of what the contract says and what you expect to be paid for, and all the rest. I mean, that just goes with the territory of any consultant, I guess. Specifically in the PMO arena, I think that there is a disconnect quite often between what a client needs and what a client wants. And a lot of times there isn't that clarity that you just spoke about bringing in a consultant or consultant team to do a specific thing. It's more a case of, we have a problem, we think we want to do this, and come in and talk to them and say, well, I think you should do something different. And they're like, okay, we'll do that. But then their wants change again. It's like, okay, yeah, nice shiny object over there, that's cool, but let's put the wheels on this thing first, right? Let's make sure it works. Then we'll start worrying about the rest. And getting them to focus on what they need as opposed to what they want is, critically important. There's also that problem that, oh, you're a PMO consultant. I've worked with PMOs in the past. They suck. You must suck. You've probably seen, and I'm sure our audience has seen the various reports that Forrester this year came up with. PMOs suck. You should relabel yourself as a VMO, Value Management Office, because then you won't suck. I'm like, okay, interesting logic. PMI has said, it's not necessarily a PMO anymore. Let's call it an XMO. It doesn't stand for anything because it's like CXO. It's fill in the blank with whatever term you want. And there is Strategy Realization Office for the strategic PMO, or Strategy Execution Office, because PMO as a label doesn't work anymore. But you know what? You've got to get past that, and the only way you can do it is demonstrate what you can do, right? And if you don't get the opportunity with one client, then that was never going to work. We talked a little bit about the challenges that happen sometimes with PMO leaders. I've never really run into too much in the way of challenges with project managers, because in most cases, PMs get the idea, and I don't get down into the weeds of sort of, this means your job is going to change fundamentally starting on Monday, right? That becomes somebody else's problem. But conceptually, they get it. Yeah, we want to do something that's important. We want to understand why we're doing this. We want to contribute to the success of the business. Great. Okay, you're on board then. Then it's somebody else's problem to go, so forget on time, on scope, on budget. Embrace the idea that your project's going to change probably 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. And by the way, you're going to be more small A agile, even if you're not managing using an agile framework. That becomes somebody else's problem. But I think maybe the biggest challenge, I was thinking about this a little bit, maybe the biggest challenge is going away. Because if you've done a good job, the client's like, well, could you just help us with this? Could you? I'm like, at some point you need to become self-sufficient. At some point, you have to recognize that you need to run this function yourself. And I guess it's the secret of being a good consultant, right? Is to be able to get those renewals, but you've also got to be able to move on. So, that's my thinking on the challenges anyway. But I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's interesting.
you've had challenges as well, Bill, right? I mean, trying to find
Yeah.
people.
I have, yeah, and it is difficult to find people from a consultant perspective. 100%, right? There's not a lot of good, solid, named PMO consultants out there that you'd want to bring in that you value their opinion. But let me tell you what I have experienced, and it's been really interesting because, like you had said earlier, when you are hired by when you're hired by a company, you're often hired by the executives. You're not hired by the PMO director or the leader or whatever. From the PMO perspective, you're hired by the executives. And what I've seen is a lot of cookie cutter. I've seen a lot of people and consultants come in and said, we have to do it exactly this way because we did it exactly that way at that company and it's going to work. Or we've seen something on the lines of, well, okay, so here's the thing. I was hired by the executives, so I'm only going to cater to what the executives want. Right. And it's like, well, wait a second. I need to tactically execute this day to day. I get what the executives want, and that's a directional. But we also have to be the reality is we have to understand what's going on day to day as well. And that cookie cutter approach may or may not work. So I've seen that before. I've seen them come in and go, just do this, or just cater to exactly what the executives want, and really ignore what's actually going on. And that's a huge problem. Have you seen that? Have you experienced that? Have you come in afterwards, after consultants come in and go, can you just fix the mess that they've created?
I won't name the consulting firm, but they're fairly well known, that came in before me, and they came in to try and fix the mess. And clearly they'd got a standard approach, templates, processes, and everything else, and they'd use search and replace to change the name of the client from the previous to the current, and they'd missed some. So it was fairly obvious what they'd done. So yeah, I mean, I've certainly seen that. I've seen largely the larger consulting firms, right, who say, we've invested a huge amount of time and money into developing this approach. We're going to start with a maturity assessment to identify where the opportunities for improvement are, and then we're going to bring in our experts to help move you down that maturity continuum, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But this is not a generic company.
Right.
This is an individual company with unique challenges in a world that is changing very rapidly and is very different than that maturity model that you put together before a pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, we're in a different world now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see AI anywhere in your maturity model.
Right.
So why should I give it any credibility whatsoever? And by the way, if you do have a maturity model that's got AI in it, why should I give that any credibility? Because right. AI is so damn new that you've got no freaking clue what different levels of maturity are.
Yeah.
You know, I think that anybody who says, I've got an approach, I know what to do. I've never said to a client, I know what we're going to do on day one.
Yeah.
I've certainly not said it to try and get the business. I'm like, we're going to spend a lot of time figuring out what your problems are, and we're going to solve them. And they say, oh, I know what the problem is. This is this and this. It's like, okay, fine. Your problem is you can't deliver all the projects you approve. Fine. I get it. But what's the real problem? Is the problem that you have an execution issue, or is the problem that you have an approval issue?
Yeah.
You know, can you not execute the number of projects that you have the capacity for, or can you not limit the approvals to the number of projects that you're actually capable of delivering? And until we understand that, I've got a pretty good guess on any client, which it is. But until we figure that out, and we figure out where the bottlenecks are and where the friction points are and why things are slowing down and getting delayed, we can't fix it. I could say to add resources to improve capacity. But if the problem is that approvals are taking 3 months instead of 3 hours, it ain't going to change anything.
Right.
It just means more people sitting on the shelf doing nothing and a lower ROI.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great point. And you're spot on. And I'm sure you go from company to company to company and you see a lot of the same problems, right? Too many
with
projects.
A unique flavor.
Yeah, no one's saying, yes, we have to do everything, right? I'm sure you're seeing that across the board. And you probably get into very tough conversations with the executive teams saying, could you guys say no a little bit? Like, is there a no in there someplace, or not right now? Or could we slow things down? Because like you said, that pandemic has really shifted things, and it slowed a lot of companies down, and now they want to keep going and going and going. But but there's not that a massive hiring or workload to be able to, or workforce to be able to accommodate that speed of what they want to execute on.
A lot of it comes down to shining a light on what they already know inherently but don't acknowledge, right? I mean, not many of these organizations have integrated PPM, SPM solutions that are giving them all their information, but they've got it somewhere, even if it's only on a bunch of spreadsheets. And if you can say to a CEO, I get the fact that you want to be able to approve 100 new projects every quarter, but here's what we figured out. You have a project budget, a discretionary budget for the year of $20 million. Of that, $6 million is already committed to maintenance, regulatory, keep the lights on type stuff. So you've got 14 left. Last year and the year before, you approved programs that are still ongoing, which are going to consume $10 million. So you have $4 million left for new work, unless you decide you want to cancel some of that work from last year or the year before. So approve as many projects as you want, but you've got 4 million.
Yeah.
If you can find more money, great. But if it's 4 million, don't go telling me you want to do 100 projects.
Yeah.
Because do the math on that. It's not going to be much of a project.
No, it's not. That's interesting. All right, let me take the next couple questions, and let's jump into this, because I love where we're going here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, again, about being a consultant, right? So I know a lot of people are interested in leaving that 9-to-5 job, okay? So what are some of the rewards of being a PMO consultant?
I would say by far the biggest reward is the ability to make a difference. Now, I'm not going to suggest that if you work for a company as an employee, you can't make a difference, but you can make much more of a difference as a consultant. I can go to an organization, I can work with them for 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is, and leave looking back going, they're in a better place because of what I did. That is by far the biggest thing. Of course, there's the opportunity to be your own boss. I haven't had a performance review in over 15 years, which means that no one's told me I'm anything less than awesome. Although I guess the flip side of that is I have a performance review every time I do an RFP or talk to a potential new client. But being your own boss and having that freedom to work when you want, where you want, how you want is incredible. And sometimes it's good financial rewards. The good times are really good. The lean times, nothing happens, right? I mean, you have to be prepared to accept the fact that, if there are periods of time when you don't have the contracts, then the money isn't coming in. And I'm going to try and diversify. I do some of the thought leadership stuff as well, and that helps. But it's something that I wouldn't advise anybody to go into consulting for the money, but I also wouldn't pretend that, the money isn't good at times.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so what I loved about that is I haven't had a performance review in 15 years. It's true, but you really actually do. Like you said, they renew you and renew you and renew you, that's a performance review. If they have come in and you said, let's just do this for 3 months, and they go, yeah, okay, thanks, Andy, we're good, we'll take it from there. That's a performance review, right? And so you really do have to get good at coming in, establishing your value, making those connections, and doing something good in a short period of time. Mm-hmm. Right? So that is really rewarding as well, right? I mean, I'm sure every time you get the contract renewed, there's a little bit of a reward there as well, right? So there's that component of it. Yeah. So, but which is a skill set, right? Because an employee who's been at a company for 10, 20, 15 years or whatever, yeah, they get the performance review, but they know they're going to be there the next day, right? You don't always have that uncertainty. Is that hard to get used to, that kind of that uncertainty of not having work, so the slow times or the low times, if you would?
I think, I mean, for me, it was fairly straightforward because I planned for it.
Yeah.
I knew that I had a contract for the first 6 months of going independent. So, that helps. And I think you have to be sensible about how you manage it. When I went independent, I literally went from being an employee on Friday to being a consultant on Monday. And my income multiplied by a factor of 4 over that weekend. But my expenditure didn't change. And that money just went into the rainy day fund, or the, knowing full well that it's not always going to be like this fund, or whatever you want to call it, right? If you plan for it, it's not too bad. If you're good at what you do, there will be sufficient money coming in to allow you to build up for the lean times.
Yeah.
If you pretend that the lean times are never going to happen, then, if the first time you invoice and they pay the bill, you go out and buy the BMW M3 or whatever it is, then, don't complain if there's a time in 6 months when the contract ends when you don't have any money coming in, because, well, you spent the money on the driveway, right?
Yeah.
It's being sensible about it. If you plan for what's going to happen, people who are PMO consultants have at least an understanding of projects. If they don't understand risk management, then, more fool them.
Yeah, but that, and I'm going to jump into that with my next question. But a lot of times that's what happens, right? You're an employee, you have this opportunity to go to consulting. You'd often do it over the weekend, right? You finish on a Friday. I'm going to start on a Monday as a consultant. That happens so many times, right? Employee to consultant, and then the consultant times are good and they're bad, right? As a project manager consultant, a PMO consultant, and you have to plan for that. PMO folks should, like you say, have some risk adverse or some risk management and be able to kind of plan for that. And so that is an interesting, but yeah, you have to plan for the good times and the bad times. Sure. Okay, so I'm an employee and I'm interested in moving to a PMO consultant. What do you think?
I would say do it, but make sure you've got your ducks in a row first. The first thing I would say is stand for something. Set yourself apart. When I became a consultant, I started writing for projectmanagement.com, Gantt Head as it was at the time.
Yeah.
I started speaking my mind, going to PMI chapters, giving opinions that weren't necessarily aligned with PMI, weren't ever aligned with PMI, and that reflected what I valued. The idea of a PMO being business focused that now everybody thinks is cool and groovy was, a new thing in those times. Mark Price Perry literally wrote a book on it, and that wasn't published till 2009. I've been a consultant for longer than that. So stand for something and be prepared to defend what you stand for, because that's what will set you apart. If all you're going to do is go, I'm a PMO consultant, I'm vanilla, I'm going to apply for every contract that comes up or respond to every RFP, you're not going to be able to stand out from the crowd. If you stand for something, then, you will set yourself apart. You will be able to say to a contracting manager or a hiring manager, this is what I'm about, and this is why it's different. You have to be able to defend that, of course. And you have to make sure that it's not just style. There has to be substance behind it. If I say, as I do, that I'm focused on helping an organization improve the return on its strategic investments, I have to be able to sit down with a CEO and explain what that means for him. I have to sit down with a CFO and explain what it means to her. I have to sit down with a CIO and explain how their life is going to change if we start thinking in terms of capabilities and value streams. You have to have that credibility, and you have to have a little bit of a background, right? Know what you are, know what you can do. If you are a day one PMO consultant, don't aim for reimagining General Electric's strategic PMO.
Yeah.
Because bluntly, you can't.
Yeah.
look for the small to medium-sized business who has some challenges with departmental PMOs and needs some help, because that's somewhere you can help and build your credibility and build your business. And it's no different than being a project manager, right? No one's going to take a brand new PM straight out of Project Management 101 and ask them to lead the organization's strategic initiatives.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Do you think, as a person that wants to make that leap, do you think it is important to have done project management, program management, portfolio management? Do you believe that they need to have a variety of skill sets to become a PMO consultant? Tell me a little bit about your thoughts there.
You have to understand context around PMOs, right? I mean, I'd be surprised if a PMO leader, an employee leader, didn't have some kind of background in project management. Right. But I'd be disappointed they didn't have business background as well. So if you want to be a PMO consultant, I expect you to have a degree of project management expertise. I expect you to understand the challenges, the issues, the priorities of a PM, the things that keep a PM awake at night, the things that motivate them to do well on their teams. But I also expect you to be able to put yourself in the shoes of your business stakeholders. Now, if you've been operating at a departmental level, your stakeholder shouldn't be the CEO on day one of being a consultant, but it may be a department head, right? And I expect you to be able to speak the language of the business and have credibility there. I don't think being a consultant is any different in terms of type of experience than being a PMO leader employee. I think the difference is in perspective and ability to communicate and convey that. There's some analysis pieces there, but it's really about the ability to think differently.
Yeah. But a couple of things that you've pointed out as well is you've said, hey, write on projectmanager.com, like get yourself out there, stand for something, watch AI, watch the trends. That's also a really important component as well, right? Because project leaders, directors, PMO managers, they're trucking along and they're doing their day to day, but you never see an article out of them. You never see an opinion on LinkedIn of them, right? And so they're doing maybe a great job at one company at one time, but it's going to be a really hard leap for them when there's so many other people that are pushing themselves, their background, their articles, their webinars, all those things. That leap gets a lot harder because the market's getting tougher and tougher when you have LinkedIn and Twitter and all these various places to give your opinions. Any kind of thoughts around that social, that being a leader in the industry from that perspective and making that jump?
I think it's actually easier than it was when I started. I mean, I had projectmanagement.com, ganthead.com at the time.
Yeah.
I sent them articles. They decided if they were going to publish them.
That's right.
It went through an editorial process, right?
Yeah.
Today, I can go to LinkedIn and I can, do a post or like something or whatever, but I can also write multi-thousand word articles on LinkedIn and get it out there. And no one's going to stop me. Right. And it's going to show up in feeds of people I'm connected with or who follow me or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's a lot more content out there. It may be harder to stand out, but if you have an opinion, you'll stand out.
Yeah.
It's you have to make sure that opinion is A, real. You have to really believe that, and B, has the potential to align with a client. I mean, I'm well aware that when I have an opinion, I will make myself attractive to a subset of clients because they'll reject other people who don't think the same way.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I'm also closing down, shutting the door on a number of other clients who don't agree with my way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as I don't sit there and say PMOs are the biggest waste of space ever and they should all be abandoned starting Monday,
right.
Then, I'm offering opinions that people can align with if they choose to. And if they don't choose to align with it, then I'm probably not the right person for them anyway.
And I think that's so important. I think your point is dead on there. There's so many people that are just vanilla in their opinions, right? I started this year with the AI thing, right? I got into the AI thing. And I was like, can you guys slow down a little bit? Like, can you not think it's the biggest thing in the world? Now, look at the advancements it's made, even in this from January when I first got interviewed to now, right? With it being on the phone, I was having a conversation with it today on my phone. We were talking about fasting and losing weight and stuff. It was incredible, right? So it's moving at rapid speed, but so many people are just jumping on any bandwagon, right? Agile, PMO bandwagon, whatever bandwagon, and they don't have an opinion. And they think they don't want to rock the boat. And actually, you often do come out with opinions which sometimes rock the boat, which is really one of the values, is because you can stand behind all your experience and all your background, right? And so that's actually a very valuable thing in a lot of cases. But you're right, you're probably closing the door on some clients. Which,
but if you want to go to Hollywood and be an actor, you don't want to be one of the 10,000 people in the crowd scene.
That's right.
Right? You want to be the person in the spotlight.
Yeah.
So if you want to be the person in the spotlight, in a PMO consulting environment, stand for something, set yourself apart.
Yeah.
Step forward from the crowd.
Yeah.
Now, don't be an idiot. I mean, I saw something on LinkedIn from someone who was, one post was, I can't believe how short-sighted employers are. I've been looking for positions for however long and I'm not even getting callbacks. This is ridiculous. They don't know what they're missing out on, which is, okay, frustration, but also arrogance. And then 5 minutes later, they're responding to a post that goes, I can't believe all these agile people who think that lean is agile. And they go, yeah, I know. The next thing they'll be going, oh, Kanban's agile as well. Who do these idiots think they are? Don't they know that lean and Kanban have got nothing to do with agile? And it's like, and you wonder why no one wants to hire you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because they're tracking that. You don't think they are, but they're tracking that, right? There's a lot of recruiting type of social systems where they're watching your posts. They know what you're saying. They get that vibe. It may not be the exact hiring manager, but it's going to be the recruiting team.
And as soon as somebody as a hiring manager goes, okay, these are the candidates who've been shortlisted, they're going to go on LinkedIn and see what their activity is, right?
Yeah.
You don't use resumes anymore. You go and look at LinkedIn profiles, right? The resume is the sales pitch. The LinkedIn profile is the truth.
Yeah.
I get what this person was saying. Yes, Lean and Kanban existed long before the Agile Manifesto. I get it. But, make your point in a way that doesn't alienate people.
Yeah, and that's key. But it is okay to actually spar back and forth a little bit with somebody. Some people just spar for the sake of sparring, and I don't think that helps either. Right.
I mean, look, I don't work much with PMI because PMI knows what I think of them. Right? Yeah. And I mean, I'm not afraid to say so. But I do it in a way that I hope is well-reasoned, well thought out and logical. You don't have to agree with me. In fact, I'd rather have a discussion with somebody who doesn't quite agree than just have people go,
100%.
Right? It's like if I write an article on projectmanagement.com, right? You can score it, you can give it a star rating, or you can make a comment. I'd much rather you made a comment than give it a star rating.
Yeah.
Because, then we can start discussions. Then we can start moving the conversation forward. Then we can start making the world of project management a better place.
Yeah. Because ultimately, that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to make it better. We're trying to make it easier. We're trying to help share backgrounds and experiences. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, right? And even this discussion today, where there's a lot of people that will watch this and go, yeah, I'm ready to make the jump. I've been an employee too long. I'm ready to make the jump. If they do, what are some of the types of consulting services that are available?
I think that you can do pretty much whatever you want to do. They're really on, what are the services that a PMO offers these days, right?
Yeah.
There's thousands of different services depending on the type of PMO. Are you a Center of Excellence PMO? Are you a Governance PMO? Are you a Strategy Execution PMO? There's a million different services out there. I see it's just gone from thousands to a million. And that's the problem sometimes, right? Consultants try to do everything to everybody, right? You want a Center of Excellence PMO? Oh, I'm the person there. I can do your best practices. I can give you the continuous improvement programs. You won't do better than me. Oh, you want governance? Oh, I'll show you governance. I can do lean governance. I can do detailed process, field level governance. We can do everything in between. I've got it. You want to do strategy execution better? Oh, prioritization, investment funding, work execution, benefits management. Oh, I'm there. You can't do everything, right?
Right.
If you want to be a PMO consultant, you can be a PMO consultant in any combination of the services that are offered by PMOs, and you can invent your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can't be everything to everybody and be good at it all.
Yeah.
So figure out what you're good at. I don't have any interest in putting a governance model in place unless it's lean governance that's aligned with investment level funding.
Yeah.
I am interested in helping organizations to put in place development programs for PMs, PMOs, program managers, portfolio managers, but I'm not interested in being the mentor of those people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm interested in helping them put a framework in place that allow them to find more appropriate mentors to help them develop through. I am interested in helping them put in place better strategy execution. I'm not interested in being part of their prioritization process.
Right.
You know, it's figuring that stuff out, knowing which services you're good at, what you're interested in, because, you know, it's not always the same thing. And delivering that subset that makes sense for you, but recognize that there's a million other consultants out there who can fill in the other gaps.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, when I look for consultants, we talked about it earlier, I've hired consultants, you know, around governance and around portfolio management. I actually even hired a tool consultant, right? Was a portfolio management expert, but actually helped me implement, it was Project Online at the time, but portfolio management within Project Online. So you're right, like you do have to niche down and really know what you're good at, but you can't niche down so far that you only do one thing, right? That would lose a little bit of the consultant. You can bounce yourself. You just said you can bounce from strategy to portfolio management, but you probably may not be able to do every tool, right? And come in and be a tool consultant as well, right? So you do have to have a little bit of variety, but you can't do everything and do it well.
Right.
Which is not possible.
Tools are an interesting one. I don't want to sort of derail us too much there, but I mean, I work with a lot of different tool vendors, specifically because they know I don't recommend one tool over another. I maintain that independence. But the tools these days are advancing and evolving so rapidly that if you want to be an expert in tools, you almost have to pick a tool, right? Which is why so many of these organizations have dedicated third-party implementation partners, right? Because you have to get into the details and you just can't get to that level of currency, at that level of detail with multiple tools. It's just not possible. They're doing releases every, 3 months, 6 weeks, whatever it is, right? If you're trying to do 3 or 4 tools, that's a full-time job in itself.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Okay, so we're a little bit over time. I just want to wrap it up with the hiring. This has been a great conversation. So first of all, congratulations. You're top 5 in the world from a PMO influencer, right?
Which is
amazing. Yeah, that's good. But you're there every year. You're always on the list. To be a consultant, do you believe that this kind of recognition will help you get consulting gigs? Do you believe that's
It doesn't hurt, does it? Right? I mean, to have peers sort of identify you, recognize you as somebody who is worthy of recognition. Although I will never win it because PMOGA has just been bought by PMI. So there go my chances. I know in my particular case, I don't think it's going to get me more business because I don't think I can take on much more business, but I think that it probably helps from a daily rate or an hourly rate standpoint. It gives me more flexibility there, and it potentially gives me the ability to be a little more picky. I'm already fortunate in that I can turn work down. And maybe this will create an opportunity to turn more work down, and focus more on what I really enjoy rather than, what has to pay the bills.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does help you because you said it earlier. The first thing, if someone's a PMO manager gets hired or a PMO consultant gets hired, the first thing that PMO director, PMO manager does is goes and Googles you. Right? They look, and we started this with the Google conversation. We'll end it that way as well. But the point is, if your face is popping up and you're on the top 5 or the top 15 or you're the winner of it or whatever, that's going to give you a little bit more credibility. It's just going to give you a little bit more credibility because they're going to look at all those folks and they're going to go, who are they? Are they consultants? Are they not consultants? They're going to go to LinkedIn. And if you're splashing, I just won it, right? Or I'm the winner, or I'm in the top 5. I think, top 5 in the world's pretty good, right? However you get nominated, however you get listed, I know all that's kind of a secret ballot and who knows how all that works. But I think it does give you credibility. And as a hiring person who hires PMO consultants, I make those same Google searches. I'm looking for those same individuals.
Fair enough. And I know we are over time, so let me just give you one sentence.
Okay.
You'd be surprised how many people have said to me in the past, I don't think we can afford you.
Oh.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. But that just also means that's credit to you because that means you're in the upper echelon of this space, right? You're the Wayne Gretzky of hockey. I mean, you're up there. Like, so there's something there, right? So
I'm not sure PMOs are quite that sexy as compared to hockey sports, but
Well, you were going back to Canada. I had to give a Canada reference there.
You go.
Awesome. All right, Andy. Well, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. We could keep going and going. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your background and experiences. This has been just a pure pleasure. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for letting me spend some time with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation. All right. And we will get this all up and we will talk soon. So thank you all.